Arirang Acting Award goes to the films and shows we unofficially decided on. Introducing to you Korean cinema and media. This is AAA. Basically the best movie critics you will ever find, guys, in this whole wide world. We are just the bestest, and we are going to talk about the bestest films and shows in Korea. And joined with me in the studio, we have director Jerome Yu. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm well. Everybody's saying welcome back, Jerome. Hello, hello.
Happy to be back.
How's your last week been? It was your first week in Korea.
It was. What can I say? It was wonderful. Other than the that one day where there was torrential rain falling.
When?
Just the other day, I was driving back. It was my grandmother's birthday, and I was driving back from the Gangwon area.
Yeah.
And it was like torrential rain falling.
Really?
Yeah, you don't remember this? Maybe around Wednesday, Thursday.
No.
Anyways,
Yeah, but we like rain.
yeah, it's been wonderful though. A lot of good food.
Yeah, what have you been eating?
I've been eating a lot of stews. It's been getting a little colder these days.
It's chilly, yeah, it's chilly.
So with that change in the temperature, I like to keep my warmth by soup, Korean soup. It
Soup.
always fills your soul.
Like
warms
what?
up your soul.
Like what soup?
I like a lot of jigaes, like
Jigaes.
sundubu, kimchi jjigae.
Tofu, kimchi stew.
It's the best combination.
Yeah. Oh, now I want one. I want kimchi jjigae now.
That's your dinner right there.
Yeah, thank you.
Anytime. Anytime.
Thank you. Well, last week we talked about we talked about sleep, right?
Yes, we did.
Yes, and people really liked it because you had more of like a professional aspect in it. And today you have brought in lots of informative scenes and comments about a particular film as well, which is
the movie?
yeah.
We introducing the movie right now?
Yeah.
Can you make me like a build up the suspension a little bit?
Okay, go ahead.
In the summer of 2006,
Yes, when I was like 4.
and when I was 11 or 10, yeah, I think I was 10 maybe. I was a 6th grade or
Oh yeah.
2006.
Yeah.
You know, like those like old Hollywood movie blockbusters where the trailer always has that deep voice and this summer.
Yeah.
You know, this type of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll do this. This summer, one of the first contemporary CGI blockbusters in South Korea.
Is
The movie the movie we want to talk about today
yeah, be confident.
is
Yes.
Kaemul, otherwise known as The Host.
The host by
The great legendary Bong Joon Ho.
Woohoo! Yes, we talked about Bong Joon Ho last week as
best.
well, but it only makes sense for us to really just talk about Kaemul, and I feel like we're going to be talking about a lot of his films. But today we're going to talk about this one, Kaemul, the host. Is there a reason why you brought in like Kaemul as your first Bong Joon Ho film on this corner?
Yes, because it just so happens to be the very first movie I saw in Korean theaters.
Oh, wow.
Because I grew up abroad, when I came over the summers, it was the very first movie I saw in the movie theater in Korea.
Were you not scared?
I was traumatized.
Yeah, because when Kaemul came out, I went to the theaters with my parents too. And this is, mind you, 2006.
That's right.
So I'm like, what, 4, 5, 6?
Were you allowed in the theater?
I'm 4. I don't know, but I was there. I remember like literally crying
Yeah.
in my mom's lap. I don't know what my parents were thinking.
They should have taken you out of the theater immediately because
Yeah.
you were ruining and traumatizing everyone else's experience.
No, I wasn't loud though. I was just like whimpering. And then my mom, she would tell me, she would be like, "Oh, 지금 괴물 안 나와," in my ear. She's like, "No monsters now." And she just forced me through the film. Maybe that's why I'm such a horror maniac today. because she just trained
That's the way
me.
your parents were raised. They
Yeah.
raised you to be this way.
Yeah.
That's why you are who you are.
Yeah, so go blame my parents, guys. Yeah. So we're gonna talk about Kwemur, the host, today, but before we get in depth with this film, we're gonna go listen to an iconic soundtrack from the host. This was written by Lee Byung-woo, and it's called 한강창가 B4A3 in praise of the Han River. What a very demure song. Very demure.
Very Bong Joon Ho, I would say.
You did understand what I just said, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Like you get the meme, right?
Yes.
Okay. It was interesting. It was very quirky. It's very kind of eerie, but it's also kind of joyful. Right?
It's a little, I don't know. I feel like it's what would ring inside the mind of a psychopath.
All right. It didn't ring inside me for sure, but let's get into the host. Could you introduce what the movie is about?
The host. Where do I start? Well, I suppose...
From the beginning.
Yeah, from the very beginning.
From the beginning, bro.
The Host is a monster movie that... it's a monster movie that I think it's on another tier, in my opinion.
Okay.
And the story goes that there's a monster that's been growing in the Han River.
Yes.
And one day it grows large enough that it starts to attack the population and abducts the child of a family, the daughter. And the film follows the journey of this family, which journeys to try and get their daughter back from this monster.
Yeah, while everybody is like running away from the monster and like police aren't allowing them to like go places and
That's right. It's somewhat prophetic of the situation we faced in 2020, the whole quarantine situation, because the whole city goes into quarantine
Right.
of what they're calling is a virus that's going around.
Yeah.
So I find that it's just it was a movie made far earlier from the times of what, we kind of faced as, the world faced.
Yeah. And let's just tell them the actors, just in case any of our listeners didn't tune into this film, which you should if you have not yet. The main leads are Song Kang-ho. Obviously, he's in many Bong Joon Ho films. Song Kang-ho.
This was the second movie that I believe he was in.
After Memories of Murder.
That's right.
Song Kang-ho, and then there was Bong, Park Hae-il, Bae Duna, and Ko Ah-sung. Ko Ah-sung is one of the younger daughters. She's the one that gets abducted, right?
Yep, Ko Ah-sung is the actress that gets abducted.
Yes,
Hyun-seo is the character's name.
Yes, Hyun-seo. And Ko Ah-sung was very young at this age, but she's still, like, it's kind of cool because recently she released a new, like, series called, like, Because I Don't Like Korea. It's, like, a new series that's going on, and you can just see that she used to be so young back then, and now she's just thriving in her, like, age right now as well. She's wearing the uniform. You guys can see the poster on the screen right now, and I'm assuming this is like an English poster because it says The Host. We gotta talk about the name later too, and you see in the back a little bit of the creature or the 괴물, and we will mention it, but the just CGI or how they like made the 괴물, the monster, appear on screen is, I don't believe it's from 2006.
It still stands up to this day, which is incredible. From the mid, 2000s, we see Korea take the next step into creating films with CGI.
Right.
And, this was truly one of South Korea's first blockbuster, films.
And it doesn't look cringy. Like, when you watch like stuff with creatures in it, like sometimes you're kind of like, like that doesn't even look scary, like, or it doesn't look real, so you can't really concentrate. And I'm someone like that because when I watch creature stuff or like zombie stuff or anything including fantasy, unless it's really realistic, I can't get into the mood because I'm like, oh, it's fake. Like, I know it's fake.
I agree with you.
Yeah, but The Host firstly, the storyline is so realistic. Like, it could happen. I feel like it could happen.
No, totally.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like convinced. I'm like, whoa, wait, this isn't like a fantasy movie. This is reality. Like, it could happen. And the stuff I'm seeing on the screen, it looks real. It looks legit.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, they shot. Oh gosh, where do I even start?
What-
There's just
what?
so much to talk about. It takes place in Yeouido, at least where
Right.
the initial kidnapping takes place. And maybe that's why it also resonated so much with the Korean audience at the time, where they realized that, it follows realistic events. One of the early inspirations of this film was when an American scientist was caught,
Yes.
for dumping chemicals into the Han River. This was
Right.
a true event.
Right.
And there are true events that are taken inspiration to build this movie.
Right.
So I find that it's based on realism, and to have the special effects and CGI really bring this monster to life in a realistic way that
Yeah.
doesn't, as you're saying, doesn't come across off-putting, I feel like is what really sells it, as well as this, humble family's journey.
Right, right. And also on the screen right now, you can see the Yeouido scene. I think that's with all the grass, and that's the creature we're looking at. It's kind of weird because it doesn't look like anything. Like, it doesn't look like a certain something. It's really a creature. And it's not an alien. It's not a dinosaur. It's not anything animal-y, which kind of makes you more convinced about the whole chemical story.
That's right.
Yeah, like you're scared. You don't know what's gonna happen, like through like these chemicals.
Basically, that's like when a Spider-Man gets bitten by a spider and there's chemicals put into his
Right.
veins, so he becomes some sort of,
Weird
superhuman
thing, yeah.
weird thing. This is what happened to a fish in the Han River.
Yeah.
And, we see little moments where Bong Joon Ho plays with, like squid, right? And then there's this moment when like the father, Kang-doo, he opens a can of food,
Yeah.
and there's a specific type of Korean seafood in it, or a snail. I think it's the snail.
Is it 골뱅이?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right, that's right. So then
골뱅이.
there are these like little nuances that clue
Right.
you into. It makes you think of this monster when you think about these
Ah,
right?
Right.
So it kind of clues you. Bong Joon-ho's not saying this is specifically this or that, but
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
I think it puts your mindset into a
Yeah.
little frame when you're constantly thinking about the monster in these moments.
Right, right. Speedo Donut says it reminds me of A Quiet Place. Both have great stories and cinematics. Yeah, did you watch A Quiet Place?
I did.
So A Quiet Place is, I feel like they have the same like eeriness, but I feel like the host kind of has like that like weirdness.
Well, let me tell you just off the bat, a difference between the Hollywood style of A Quiet Place, or as a matter of fact, a lot of Hollywood movies that Bong Joon-ho takes a different approach to is he doesn't hide from the fact of, he doesn't hide the monster. He shows
Right.
it from the first, second scene. The monster's right there in
Yeah,
plain
yeah.
view, so you know exactly what you need to be afraid of. Where Quiet Place, it's a
Suspense.
build-up of suspense and tension, but you know exactly what you're facing. You
Yeah.
see the demon in the room.
But also you don't like lose interest, although like we see the monster from like the beginning.
No, not at all.
Yeah, because sometimes it's like they show it like at the end because like, they need the running time and stuff. But although like you just see the monster start from like right from the start, you don't get tired of it or you don't get like bored. But yeah, we have so many things to talk about, but we're gonna go take a listen to one more song from a film by Bong Joon Ho. This was written by Jung Jae-il and it's from Parasite 기생충. We're gonna listen to a bit of 믿음의 벨트, The Belt of Faith. So that was 믿음의 벨트, The Belt of Faith from Parasite. And as soon as the first melody, like you just remember all these flashing scenes from the Parasite. And I am assuming, of course, we're going to talk about Parasite in the future on this corner, right?
Nah, no, just kidding.
Nah, like, no. Like,
Of course.
Of course,
It's such a
yes.
landmark film, for the for Korean cinema, of course.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
you know, why don't we just talk about all of Bong Joon Ho's films?
We should. Yeah, we should. Definitely.
Yes.
Have you watched most of his films?
I've watched all of them.
All.
Yes.
Have you watched Mother?
Mother? Have you watched Mother? Excuse me?
I'm sorry. I apologize. Okay,
Am I a director? Am I Jerome? Are you Iris?
I'm Pretty Little Iris. Which reminds me, you guys are listening to Art Attack with your DJ, Pretty Little Iris. This is AAA. We're here with director Jerome. We are talking about The Host today. And Jerome, why don't you go on ahead and just talk about more charming points about this film for us?
There's just so many, isn't there? Well, again, just this is an $11 million movie. For the budget. The VFX and CGI was done internationally. Specifically, it's called Orphanage Studios that's based in San Francisco. They did Sin City, they did Hellboy, and Bong Joon Ho collaborated with them to bring this monster to life. And at the time, I believe it was just they were at, you know, the most cutting edge, you know, studio working with CGI. So then I believe this is why it still lasts to this day. Bong Joon Ho in a monster movie. This is what caught the attention of international directors as well, such as Quentin Tarantino, who is a huge horror and, you know, monster buff. So then this is kind of how Bong Joon Ho put himself on the map, you know, overseas as well. I think it was through a global film like The Host that they were able to meet Bong Joon Ho in his other works as well, his previous works at the time, such as Memories of Murder or Barking Dogs Never Bite. So this was a very, very, it was a landmark film, not just for Korean cinema, but for what it was doing for the Hallyu wave in a sense. Right. So then I also want to talk about, it's not just a monster movie for me, because you see the usual quirks of Bong Joon Ho's comedic sensibilities. It is very much so a dark comedy. You could even argue that it's a family movie. Because we're not constantly under the threat of looking at this monster, but we're seeing this family dynamic.
Low key, it's funny. I think it's kind of
hilarious.
You feel bad for the family, and then like they try, right? Like, and then like seeing them try so hard, and like, you know how in between like they have like their little like missions, like trying to like get out of the place without getting caught and stuff, like by the soldiers or whatever, and it's kind of like, it's funny and you kind of relate to them, and then you kind of feel pity for them. So I think it's like a funny film.
Well, I just want to point out this one hilarious scene to me where, you know, what someone else might feel, you know, the father, Kang-do, lost the daughter. They're at this big funeral ceremony that's paying tribute to all the lost lives at Hangang River after the first monster attack. And looking at the daughter's portrait, you know, each family member makes their entrance. We first see, you know, the sister who's an Olympic archer, right?
Bae-duna.
Bae-duna makes her entrance, and, you know, she's holding on to this bronze medal to show who she is, just a little bit of her character. And then you see the other brother enter, who's a drunk. He's an alcoholic. And you see in that same frame that it's not a bronze medal, it's a soju bottle. Right. But then this all kind of comes together to see them all mourn and grieve over the daughter's portrait. But they start getting into this big tussle and this like wrestling match with one another. And this compensated like, you know, grief, you know, the way they cry, like it's done in such a comedic way where you should be feeling sadness, but true to Bong Joon Ho's style, it becomes a very comedic moment.
It's just funny.
Do you ever cry like that?
Is that a genuine question?
That is a genuine question.
You know the answer.
Have you ever bawled? Like not like a pretty cry, but then like bawled your eyes out?
Not like a pretty cry?
No, like I'm talking with like snot coming down your like nose, like you know.
We're gonna move on. What's another charm you think this film has?
Another charm that this film has for me is how perfectly, I suppose it goes back to not just the comedy, but then how they capture the characters. They're all so distinct, the family, right? I find that the father is a bit of this, you know, a loser, essentially.
He's unreliable.
He's an unreliable loser. You know, he's a poor father. You know, they say that like even the daughter, it was an accident where, You know, it was there's this one line where it says the way that the child was conceived was an accident, and the way that she's lost is also an accident, right?
Poor girl.
Yeah, truly.
Poor girl.
But it speaks to the character, right?
Yeah.
And then you see the father, the grandfather, who opens up about how he's never truly been, you know, a great father, right? How that parallels his own, you know, son. The other son is also drunk.
Right.
And then maybe the only family member that has a little bit of success is his sister.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot of success, actually,
Right.
compared to like being from that like environment that we see.
Totally.
Like they legit lived in a container box.
That's right.
Yeah, which is kind of like their store, like a little like snack store.
That's right.
Corner store. And then they just live there. And then they literally have a medalist in their family. Like,
That they all look up to,
yeah,
right?
yeah. That's just, yeah, how does that happen? And like thankfully, because they have her, they do have some like progress later on. Because like, you know how like all the family members try to help,
Yes.
but they're not always helpful?
No, not at all.
Yeah, they're not helpful. So it's kind of like, yeah, at least they have one boss that knows what to do.
It's so funny. I want to bring up all these like little scenes just because, you know, as we're talking about all this,
You
like
just
there's so many like
remember.
clear scenes that, you know, like support this,
Yeah,
right? How all the family members are a bit of like losers or have their flaws, but then
Yeah.
you know the sister in her own quiet way, because she is the quietest of the bunch, right?
And strong.
Will come in and
Yeah.
you know save them, but then there are a couple memorable scenes for me,
Okay.
you know, when I think about this film. And the first is even the opening. We were talking about how most monster movies, there's always this buildup of suspense and tension.
Right.
When we think of classic Hollywood movies. Bong Joon Ho, you know, cuts the chase, and the third, fourth scene of the film in the first 10 minutes
You
is
see it.
you see the monster. And let me talk about this buildup really quickly. How quickly we get to the meat of the story.
Okay.
The first scene we open on two scientists, right? An
Yeah.
American scientist and a Korean scientist. And the American scientist says, you know, there's all this dirt on all these chemicals. Formaldehyde, I believe, is the chemical. And then tells the Korean scientist, throw this down the drain. And then the Korean scientist goes, these are toxic chemicals, sir. And then should we act this out? I have the quotes.
Okay.
Okay.
What am I supposed to say?
You can play the Korean. You
Okay.
can play the good guy. I'll play the bad
I'll be
guy.
the good. Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
I don't know that. I don't
Get into
remember the
character. Stop
scene.
laughing.
Okay.
Stop laughing. Stop.
But this is bad chemicals, sir.
No. Let me. Are you ready? Okay. Action.
Okay.
Pour it right down the drain, Mr. Kim.
If I pour them in the drain, they'll run into the Han River.
That's right. Let's just dump them in the Han River.
Dudung.
Well, that was horrible, by the way. But anyways, we cut to that. I'm just going to move on real quickly.
Okay.
But then we cut to two fishermen right afterwards.
Yeah.
You know? And then two fishermen, like, they catch a little, you know, fish, and then they comment on it. Oh, like, this is a little funny looking fish. What's wrong with it? And then he lets him go, and then they, like, he takes, like, a little nibble.
Yeah.
And then after that, we cut to a man that's about to jump off the bridge,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the police and his, like, you know, the others on the bridge are like, please stop. And then he looks down, and then he comments to himself, do you see that down there?
Yeah.
Right? That thing. Oh, you, like, losers. Like, you don't know anything. Right? And then he jumps.
Right.
So there's this like quick buildup of like this monster is growing, essentially, is what we're trying to clue onto. And then we show the father and the daughter, you know,
Right.
inside their life at the Han River.
So basically, if you have short attention span, we're good. You got this. Like, you know, some people don't like sitting through like more slow burn films, but I'm kind of like that too. But if you're like that, don't worry. You can just watch this film and you won't be bored. You won't be concentrating on anything else but this film. So yeah, try it, guys. Try it out. And I'm just fascinated. You remember these scenes like this.
Well,
in depth.
Yeah. Because, I mean, first of all, I've seen this movie about 5 times now.
Uh-huh.
How many times have you seen it?
Once?
When you were 5?
No. Oh, twice then.
Why did you lie?
Because
Are you a liar?
Because I'm dumb. I'm sorry. I'm making him bully me today because last week I bullied him.
You're not Pretty Little Iris. You're a liar.
No, I'm
Little
Pretty
liar,
Little
liar-
Iris.
little liar
You're
Iris.
bully Iris Jerome. But yeah, I watched it twice.
Okay. When's the last time you watched it? I'm testing you now.
I think like 5 years, 6 years ago.
Are you telling the truth?
Yeah.
Blink twice if you're telling the truth.
I have big eyes, so you can see if
You
I'm
blinked
blinking.
once. Sounds like you just lied.
Okay, what is what is the purpose of you bullying me right now?
Okay, so I'm just gonna get back to the
Yes,
film.
please.
The Hangang scene is a major scene for me because we see the monster, and there are these little quirks when, from my perspective, when I look at it as a director, it's done with such Bong Joon Ho flair and quirk and his taste and sensibilities. There's this one scene within, you know, the father brings out like beer
Yeah.
and food for the
People
yeah,
there.
like the people there,
Yeah.
right? And then they're all staring out at the river. They say, "What is that? You know, is that a construction?
Yeah,
Is that a
yeah.
construction like a thing, right?" And it's
Right.
like, "No, no, no, it just moved. It just moved."
Yeah.
And then it dives down and it gets closer, and then we see a bigger crowd, almost like, you know, if we were to see a bear in the wild or something, you know?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And we're just like, it's a interesting musing. Everyone's looking at it. And then it comes up and it starts causing a terror, right? And as people are screaming and like we see the chaos build up, right? And a director's choice typically would be let the chaos build. More screams, more chaos. But we cut to mute because there's a lady on her headphones listening to music.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then bam, it's like, you know, the tail whips, the squid tentacle or
Yeah, yeah.
the tail whips around and like takes her. We see
Yeah.
this like objective view from the train. There was a still earlier of that exact shot of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, from someone that's just like so completely outside of the panic and the chaos happening.
Right.
What does that look like? Oh, there's a monster in a crowd on, you know, at Hangang Park.
Right, right.
And then there's this one scene
Mm-hmm.
where everyone's trying to run away, and you know, like those like portable boxes. It's kind of like that shop the family
Yeah, yeah.
runs.
Container.
Yeah, everyone's trying to like close that off to hide. But the
Yeah.
monster breaks through and enters, and
Devours.
it's not like this like fear.
Mm-hmm,
It's not a fear where it's like, oh, there's blood and madness and like, you know, like gore. It's just as simple as there's a monster in a cage with all these people, and we slowly pan down to see blood trickling down with
Yeah.
screams, right? And to me, that's just all directing choices that are
Yeah.
phenomenal.
It's like, it's really interesting you mentioned the container because they keep like showing boxes and containers, and especially at the end of the movie, there's like a scene where like, I'm not going to spoil it, but then they are in this container box corner store again. And there is actually a soundtrack made for this specific scene by Lee Byung-woo, like we listened to earlier. If you watch the movie, it might remind you guys. So we're gonna go take a listen to one more soundtrack from the host. This is 눈 오는 매점, Little Hut in the Snow. Definitely kind of like a slow, like end of a movie kind of song.
No, absolutely. It's very
Yeah.
poignant, isn't it?
I want to talk about a scene that you also brought in. Can we talk about the grandfather's death?
Absolutely.
Please.
It's actually, to me, it's
Yeah.
the saddest yet one of the funniest scenes
Yeah,
again because,
uh-huh.
you know, let me just take it back before the death, of course, which, you know, we can say is sad. Of course, it's, you know, to me, it's one of the saddest moments of the film.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's iconic.
It is iconic,
Yeah.
isn't it? Just this little, you know, this little whisk
Yeah.
of the hand, you know, and
Yeah.
it's more, it's sadder because, you know, moments before the family's in the container, you know, the shop, and he opens up in a vulnerable moment about how Kang-do, his, the father of the daughter, right, and his son, grew up malnourished, unable to, you know, have proper nutrition for his body and health.
Right.
And that's why he stole foods when he was younger. And he's also speaking up about how he wasn't the best father to him. And then he keeps on telling his other, like the daughter and the other son, right? The archer and the drunk,
Yes.
right? To take care of him and don't get so upset about him. And he opens up and then yet we see them falling asleep. Right?
Yeah.
He's falling asleep and then the camera pans and suddenly Kang-do, who's been asleep up to this point,
Yeah.
suddenly is wide awake and says, he's looking at us. And we cut to the window and we see the monster
Right.
Grazing in the field, in
Right,
the
right.
hanggang like grass. And he's just, almost like a lion just kind of like roaring or something like that, or like a wolf.
Yeah.
And he's just like watching back. And then they slowly pull out the gun and then shoots it. And that's when the action starts again, right?
This is when the grandfather dies?
That's right, because right afterwards they start running and
Running
then,
away and chasing
Yeah,
and-
chasing to try and kill
Yeah.
this gun, and then the iconic scene becomes the grandfather has a clear shot, click, there's no more bullets.
Yeah,
Right? And that's when the monster starts running towards him, and then we see him do the iconic.
Yeah. So
know.
basically, if you didn't watch the scene, like the click happens and then everybody's like, oh, like, and then we see like him looking at like his family members that are like already ahead of him, like running away. And then Kang-do is kind of like, come, right? Like he's like, 아버지, like he like says something or something.
That's right.
Yeah. And then he like just whisks away with his hand. Like he knows what's going to happen and he knows like he's not going to make it.
And it's so brutal because the monster runs him over, right? And as soon as Kang-do starts to try and attack again, the tail whips and basically flips the body, onto the pavement. And then we come to the body. The family comes back over the body after the monster leaves into the water, escapes. And then the police are coming to chase the family. And all he can do for his father is not take care of the remains, but just throw a wet newspaper on top of his face as they run away, right?
It's, yeah.
To me, that part really got me because, not being able to do something about your father's, remains after his quick death, that sort of conflict, the inner conflict of having to leave him behind. And all he can do, this, son that's hit rock bottom, is able to put a wet newspaper on top. And one thing that I just want to quickly say about the scene is, did they wait to get this perfect weather, this rainy, gloomy, cloudy weather?
Yeah, you gotta be
for this
really
scene?
lucky when you're filming things. Well, obviously, but yeah, I mean, I guess legendary things just get luck as well. Like,
Is
it
it
just
luck?
happens.
Well, that's my genuine question is, at that budget range,
Yeah.
can you afford to wait for that perfect weather? Or are you just shooting per
It's
schedule
just-
and you just get lucky?
It's just, I think, destined. Like, the world just helps you if it's gonna work.
Right.
Yeah, I think the host is something like that as well. I feel like an hour is so short for us to like discuss about a movie because Jerome is just so enthusiastic talking about Korean film. But it is time to say goodbye already. You have more things you want to talk about, right?
It's all right here.
Yeah, it's all right here, but maybe when we talk about future Bong Joon Ho films, we can like kind of come back to the host as well. But how is the show today?
Wonderful. I always have a good time. Second show. I feel like it's my lucky day whenever I get to come here.
Yay!
Other than the fact that you're next to me.
No, I'm your lucky charm, okay? So we'll be really expecting the film that you're going to bring in next week. It might be a series, guys. It might be a film. We never know. He probably doesn't even know. You don't know yet, right? You
I
don't have
do
to
know.
tell. Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's a secret.
Okay. It's a secret, guys. So just, you got to tune in next week and see. We're going to say bye to Jerome. And we'll see you next week, Jerome. Bye-bye. Did you enjoy today's episode of Arirang Acting Awards? If you did, don't forget to join us live every Monday at 3 p.m.